Do you ever feel like you're afraid to be alone at night? Are you haunted by manic thoughts that someone could get to your house through several locks? Don't worry, you're not alone. But what if I tell you that even the most protected person can be overtaken by a violent death one peaceful night? Another evening in the kitchen, another unsolved story. I think many of you heard about this Polish politician whose murder created a huge reaction in media. And it's even hard to describe how big it was. Not only because this person was really important, but also because there were so many secrets and unanswered questions around this case. It's 1992. Arriving to his parents' villa in one of the districts of Warsaw in the evening, the son found his father in his armchair, with a trouser belt around his neck. He had been strangled, and his wife was found in a pool of blood in the bathroom. She was shot by a hunting rifle taken from a home collection. This story remains to be one of the most mysterious episodes of the Polish modern history, and has not yet been solved. Let's start from who he was and what was his nationality. For example, there is not a word about it in official documents dedicated to him. It is known that he was born in 1909 in Nesvizh, Belarus, and his grandfather also worked in the Nesvizh palace. He was raised in a family of Orthodox priests. When he was a little boy, he dreamed of becoming a teacher one day. So, when he became a grown-up man, he built his career in this field. But after the beginning of the Second World War, everything changed for him. He also had no reason to have any positive feelings for the Soviets. In September 1939, he and the other civilian refugees found themselves near the borderline. He wasn't able to escape Soviet invasion. Just imagine, you are living your peaceful life, and one day you and your whole family are getting deported deep into Soviet Union, into Arkhangelsk, where you need to face 40-degree frost and cut down trees. Your little daughter is dying from the hunger and disease. Over 40 years later, Yaroshevich, in his interview I Break the Silence, mentioned that he had never forgotten this to the Soviets. When the news about creation of Andrew's army reached him, he got the hope of breaking out from this Soviet paradise. But he fell ill with typhus, so he couldn't make it. But he got even more determined when he found out about creation of Polish Kościuszko division. And this was the point where his political career began. When he joined Kościuszko division in August 1943, and initially became a private soldier who was assigned to the position of the storekeeper. However, he was quickly sent to courses for political instructors, and then he progressed really fast. In 2 years, he was already promoted to a brigadier general, which is an incredible anomaly because usually this path takes many years and even decades. Piotr Yaroshevich was a key political figure in post-Second World War Poland. He served as the Minister of Defense, Deputy Prime Minister, and finally between 1970s and 1980s as a Prime Minister. But however, his politics led to numerous strikes, which ended up with him giving up his post, being expelled from a party, and continuing living peaceful life away from politics. Piotr and his wife decided to settle in a peaceful neighborhood in Warsaw area. And till the day of their murder, Piotr and Alicia enjoyed their surroundings and peaceful life, but not without numerous precautions. Why? What was he afraid of? Well, when Piotr was 9 or 10 years old, his friend once said to him, "You will live a long life, but you will be killed. I see a pool of blood and a knife in it." Good friend, yes? For example, about precautions. He always had a gun with him. Only 3 people had an access to keys, Piotr himself, Alicia, his wife, and their son Jan. To put into perspective, his son from a first marriage didn't have such a kid. Also, they always kept a trained Schnauzer dog and had 3-meter tall wired walls around their house. Even though they did all of this, a group of unknown people somehow still managed to get into their house. It is believed that they used some kind of sleeping agent on the dog. As I said before, Piotr was found strangled with the belt from his trousers, and Alicia was found shot in the head in the bathroom. So let's get into the details of the case. First of all, let's start with Alicia. In police report, it said that she was dragged through the stairs to the bathroom, and the analysis of the blood stains on the carpet on the stairs says that she somehow managed to harm one of the murderers, because the blood on the stain is mixed. It's Alicia's and somebody else. Let's come back to Piotr. He was found in the living room sitting in an armchair tangled with rope. But what's interesting that actually his right hand was unbound. We're still not sure on 100% why, but we will come back to the detail a little bit later. And another interesting detail about him is that them for several hours, and to not let him die, they gave him first medical help because they obviously didn't want him to die before he will do what they want. The only place murders left in a total mess was Peter's office. They went there probably to look for some documents they wanted him to point to or to sign, and that's also here why one of his hands, the right one, was unbound. Also, it was mentioned that they were not after stealing some expensive things from their house, which was not true because later investigators found that they have stolen 2 guns, 5K German marks, 5 gold coins, and woman's watch, which makes total no sense. Unfortunately, there is not much more to say about the crime scene because the investigation was carried out really improperly. For example, the police has no idea how the murderers got into the house. They have only a theory that they got through the 2nd floor, which is a total nonsense because they don't have any evidence. And also they totally ignored an eyewitness who claimed that they saw 2 men and a woman leave in the Yaroshevich house in early morning hours on September 1st. But there's also no information about who this eyewitness was and was this information reliable or no. So, working with unoptimal evidence, by 1994, 3 men were charged with a crime based on the confession of the partner of one of them. She said that she'd heard them planning to kill Yaroshevich. Strange, right? By 2000s, however, all 3 of them were found innocent. Even more strange. In 2005, the investigation opened anew due to introduction of AFIS, which is Automatic Fingerprints Identification System, into the Polish police forces. However, when they went to their archives, they found fingerprints missing. How did it happen? Nobody knows exactly. They searched for them for 2 years and they didn't find them. The only piece of evidence with fingerprints was a picture of one of them on the shepherd's axe. However, Yaroshevich's son, Jan, told that he got a delivery with a box with evidences and family stuff which was taken from the police, and the fingerprints were actually there. It is not 100% true information, I'm not sure if it is, but still interesting. However, the reopened investigation, which was reopened in 2005, was not successful as well. In 2018, they found 3 more men who they thought committed this crime, and even 2 of them admitted that they took a part in it. So they were part of a gang called Karate, and they told that they were going into this case and killing Yaroshevich because of financial stuff, not because of a political aims. Which is strange because we are talking here about one of the most important political figures in Poland. That's strange. And in 2019, the third man also admitted that he also took part in this crime. But after a long trial, which ended up not long ago, the court told that they were innocent. Coming back to an actual case of Yaroshevich, we know that he knew too much. He was a political figure, he was in Soviet Union, etc. So he had a lot of knowledge. But we're still not sure who the killers were and what was their motive. Why did they do this? So, here's some theories, but before I start, let's make one thing clear. Yaroshevich's son, Jan, also mentioned that killers took personal notes of his father from their house on the night of murder. I want you to remember that these are only theories, not an actual trustworthy 100% true information. But maybe they have sense? Or no sense? Let's find out it together. So, first one was published in a popular Polish weekly Frost. It states that Yaroshevich, due to his previous political position, which we discussed before, had access to main information kept under wraps since at least Second World War. By the end of it, the Polish army took over the archives of Reich Secretary main office, tasked with fighting the enemies of the state, housed in Polish castle during the war. And Yaroshevich was one of the people on site. So, the seized documents supposedly contained information on the collaboration between France and Nazi Germany, including personal notes of Léon Blum, the French Prime Minister during the 1936 till 1937, during 1938 and 1946, as well as information on the Rothschild family. Apparently, Yaroshevich himself kept some of the papers containing information that paints many international politicians in bad light. A documentarian, Jerzy Rostkowski, believes obtaining those documents motivated murders not only of Yaroshevich but also Tadeusz Stec and Jerzy Fonkowicz. All of them were present when the Nazi archives were being taken over, and all of them were later murdered in their own homes. Ew, creepy. That's creepy. The second one, this one is far-fetched one, however we will read it. So this one is that they were connected to Moscow. By the start of 1990s, Yaroshevich gave an extensive interview in which he shared a controversial theory about the so-called Soviet matryoshkas, extensively trained by the Soviets who replaced key political figures of the communist Poland. Supposedly, he learned of them via a high-ranking Soviet general, Grigory Zhukov. The vast majority of Soviet-era scholars quickly dismiss the theory, but some believe and remains, and they think that it's true. So, probably he could have learned some crazy knowledge about some Soviet Union plans. So, the third theory. Another theory argues Yaroshevich was murdered by the members of his ex-communist political party. In 1994, Poland was yet again a young democracy, having gained its freedom from the USSR only in 1989. So, if Yaroshevich indeed had devastating information on key names of communist era, leaking them would only strengthen country's resolve in its new way forward. So, understandably, communists left behind wanted anything but this newly found democracy grows. That's why probably they wanted to remove Yaroshevich. Maybe. So, who killed Piotr and Alicia Yaroshevich? Was it connected somehow with a raid on archives and other men who got killed? Nobody knows, and nobody will